Welcome back, everybody. I'm speaking with Yvonne Chapman, and the first thing I can say is, well, first thing is hello and welcome to the show. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. The first thing that really makes me very happy is that I get to see you smile because Shalon doesn't smile a whole lot, and when she does, it's usually with bad intentions. So it's great to see you smile.
Oh, thanks. It's a very true statement.
Yeah. Same thing like with Nikki. Nikki's very serious on the show, whereas Olivia is hilarious, and we don't get to see that part, with you as well. It's just, old business for the most part. We're starting to see more and more of Jalan. And by the way, those of you who have not watched all of the episodes, spoilers ahead, just make sure the last episode that came out literally yesterday night was Isolation. So I think it's episode 9, if I'm not mistaken. So
Episode 9,
uh,
yeah, that's right.
we will not be covering anything beyond that because that's for all of us to watch and learn on our own. But more and more stuff is coming out about Jalan with the backstory. Uh, when Jalan didn't actually kill Nikki during that fight, that made me personally like Jalan. And up until that point, I wasn't sure. And then there was my pivotal moment. It wasn't even the backstory. It was the her not killing Nikki. I'm like, okay, there's redeemable stuff there. I want to continue, seeing where that leads. But long-winded way to a question of how much of her backstory did you know going in?
I had a really great conversation with the showrunners, Christina and Bob, before we started filming, and I just had a list of questions to ask them about her backstory. So I would say that I knew the majority of it, definitely enough to chew on and to be able to do the story justice. And then when the script came out, I saw a lot more of the details of it. So I was really familiar with, her spinal condition, her background with her sister, and no spoiler alert, so I won't go too deep into it for those who haven't caught up yet. But yeah, I was familiar with the backstory before we started filming.
That's cool because again, we're starting off with a pilot, and right away you're killing somebody, and like, okay, I'm hoping that they gave you some background on that, and it seems like they did, which is a good thing.
Just starts off with a bang, yeah.
Yeah, it certainly got people interested right away. There's no easing in period. It's just you're gone, and
Yep.
that's how it works. I was talking to Vanessa, and speaking of Vanessa, I actually find this even more hilarious. Doing some background on you, Brett Chen, who choreographed the first half of the season, who's awesome. Brett, if you're watching, you're on. So I was just writing kind of when I posted Vanessa's interview, I posted, hey, it definitely was a missed opportunity because Vanessa knows Muay Thai. And wouldn't it have been fun if Vanessa in the middle, well, okay, Paling, in the middle of a fight just switches to a Muay Thai stance and starts doing that. And then doing research on you do Muay Thai. So now, Brett, it was a perfect opportunity to do that. Please do that for season 2, if at all possible. Just for the blooper reel alone. I want to see
We'll
that.
mention it.
Yes.
We'll throw in some kicks in there and put on some wraps and some
Yeah.
gloves, and we'll do the thing.
Absolutely. I think that would be just a lot of fun. And again, the fact that you're playing sisters and both of you have the Muay Thai background makes it even more of something that at least should be explored. So,
Right.
in terms of your martial arts background, I again I saw kind of boxing, I saw Muay Thai. Did you do any other martial arts before this?
I did not, which was kind of it was a nice thing to, you know, to not necessarily need to have to do the role. So, I mean, because I think what was nice about Christina is that she didn't make that like a qualifying thing for her actors, and she knew that we could get up to speed as long as we had some kind of background and movement. So a lot of the actors, I'm sure as you talked with Vanessa, she has a background in dance. So does Olivia. I grew up playing sports, so thankfully some of that translated into the physical ability to pick up certain moves. And like the trainers are amazing. Like the stunt team truly is like world class, and so they got us up to speed real quick.
No, that's cool. We did have those conversations. Gavin, unfortunately, is getting in the last episode. He's getting a hit in the face. where Gavin
Yeah.
has a martial arts background. So I'm waiting for that to show up. Maybe it won't, which will be unfortunate. So that's from the martial arts perspective. I think the show is getting better. I saw some things I liked in the beginning. Then I saw a couple of fights that I was not as passionate about. Having some martial arts background, I'm probably a lot more critical than people normally would be. But then I saw a lot of things I liked. So the more that it's going, the more I see. As I'm saying that, I think I'm saying something bad about Brett, who was only there for the first half of the season. I don't mean it that way. It was just personally. Anyway,
I'm
I'll.
curious, what martial arts do you practice? Have you done?
Um, yeah, so I did some kind of hand to hand, which is a mixture of all sorts of styles. My personal favorite is Filipino martial arts. So doing some Kali, doing more of the instead of the traditional blocking and then attacking. It's all flow and getting right there. So JKD is something that I started doing. Not too long ago. I've always wanted to, and then I finally found a JKD school. But I started with judo, did fencing, then went to karate, hand to hand, which is kind of a mixture of everything, then Filipino, and now JKD. So I am not a martial arts expert. I do have my black belt, but the way I look at it is there are real martial artists and there are enthusiasts. I am definitely in this box, but I love it and I practice it, and it's always going to be a part of who I am.
Well, I love hearing that because I think I'm still learning about all of the different varieties, but that's what it is. It's a ton of different varieties. So there's so many ways that you could take these fights and different styles of showing it and representation of that. So it's just like a beautiful, beautiful art form.
Yeah, and I love that again. And this is kudos to the choreographers, but some martial arts films, a fight is a fight. Not
Hmm.
in Warrior, not in here. A fight is a scene. There's still very much acting. You're still the character, and the martial arts is just the extension of what is happening in that time for that character. So when that happens, everything else doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. One other thing that I wanted to mention, because again, those people, the people like myself, and again, I did some research on you, so I heard you speak, but people who are just familiar with you as Jalan are familiar with the accent and the British accent. You don't have that. You're from Canada. Whose idea was it for Jalan to have an accent? Was it written immediately that way, or did somebody kind of bounce ideas?
So in the audition, they asked me to do one in an accent and one in a non-accent, my natural accent. And for me, it made sense. It made sense for her to have something because she was born in China and then she moved around a ton. And it was nice that I had the flexibility to kind of create the own accent. So there's a lot of tones of like what you said of a British tone. I took a lot of influence actually from my own family. So
Mhm.
my dad grew up in Shanghai, he grew up in Hong Kong, and then he went to boarding school in London, and then he spent a good 20 years in London, working out over there. And so my dad has this like interesting, he can speak fluent Mandarin and Cantonese, but he also has the influence of British in there and also a Canadian accent. And it's like it's all this kind of thing. So I just took a couple elements of that and mixed it together. So for Jalan, it's a mix of that British influence and
Mhm.
also with the Mandarin influence of where she has traveled and grew up and what has influenced her in terms of her speech and speech patterns. So I worked with an accent coach as well, just to kind of finesse those little tones in there. And so it was kind of like a representation of it. And what I really love about the show too is that we have a different accent everywhere, like you hear Kane, who's her natural Singaporean accent, and that's what my mom speaks, is with the natural Singaporean accent as well. And then Ty has his own thing, I have my own thing, Ludi has his own thing. And it's lovely to hear that because there is no monolith of an accent for the Asian population. So to me, that's something that was really new and cool to see in the show, was just to hear those different sounds.
That's a very interesting point. I did not think of it that way, but you're right. It's great. I mean, not only is this a mostly Asian cast, but the fact that you have all of the different accents to show the different representation, because Asian people, thankfully, are all over the world, and that's great.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that's very cool. I'll pay even more attention to it now that you said that. But I love the accent. I love Jilan's accent. I think it really helps, and it elevates her, and it puts her even more in the kind of that mysterious atmosphere of, a based on Marvel and other things, but the supreme being, the type of analogy. But I think the accent works really, really well.
Thank you. I mean, I have a lot of fun doing it, so
Yeah.
it's a good time.
Uh, Now, in terms of accents, I come from Ukraine, so Russian. You can hear, as I'm speaking, I hear myself saying, certain words with an accent. When I have to do accents for TV roles that I'm doing, or shorts or whatever, and I have to switch into accents, like I have to get myself into a state where I'm only using that accent for at least an hour or so before. Otherwise, I come out of that and come back in there. What's your approach in terms of doing the accent when you have to actually do a scene?
It's interesting. I think with the lines that the writers have written, it really makes sense for me to say it in the accent. I've just kind of gotten my head into that space of like, this is Jalon's words, so it's going to come out that way. It's funny if people ask me just to go straight into the accent, like right now, I don't know if I could do it because it's one of those things is like, I need her voice in those
Yeah.
words first, but I can switch pretty easily on set. Like in between takes, I'm not speaking in the accent. And that's just because I really know what the oral posture is. I practice it quite a bit, and just like so I can fall into it quite easily. Um, Sometimes, like just as a way into it, I might say a line in Mandarin just to kind of get that finesse and like that kind of oral posture going in my mouth. But yeah, it's after a while, I think, especially when you're consistent with one particular character, you
Yeah.
have to have that in order to be able to do the work. So it's just kind of like falling into that oral posture.
No, that's true. Me from my acting perspective, I don't know what that's like. I've never been on a regular on a show, so we'll see how I feel there. Now it's all shorts and it's in and out, and I'm done. So I have to do more prep.
Fair enough.
Um, but you said something that's really interesting, and that I completely agree with that. When I'm reading a script, to me, the as I'm getting to know the character, I'm kind of getting imprints of what they feel like, what they look like, how they move, and their speaking and the accent and pronunciations are a part of that. So I always want to do things in a different accent or a different pronunciation because that's how I interpret the character. And then casting directors tell me to stop doing that and just do it in the regular way. So for you, it seems like you're getting that same thing of you hear Jalan speak as you're reading the lines. That's cool.
Yeah, but sometimes too, kind of what you said, like even if I don't use it for the actual audition, and I'm not talking about Jalon necessarily,
Yeah.
but if it is a fun thing to practice just to, you get like an audition and you're like, let me just throw an accent on here and see what happens, because it does change your entire physiology. And you might like find new things about the character that you would never think of just doing an accent as opposed to like doing it yourself. So it's kind of like just a fun exercise no matter what, but
Yeah. Because
yeah.
it's stepping into somebody else's shoes, right? If somebody sounds posh to me, my whole posture, everything is going to change accordingly. It's are you the character inside out, or do you get into the character outside in? And
Right.
both work, and people use them depending on what works better for the particular character. But like all of these things make sense to me, and I love playing them. So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, it's good fun.
very cool. In terms of and well, I want to kind of do more things in terms of the show, and then I wanted people to get to know you because you have an interesting backstory of your own, getting into acting that I want to touch upon. But in terms of the show, when you auditioned, did they have you audition directly for Jalan, or did they have you audition for other characters in addition to Jalan?
Well, when I auditioned for the show, it was kind of like, I mean, it was COVID, right? It still is. So it was for Jalon specifically, and it was just through a self tape. So as everything is right now. And then I got feedback on that self tape. I redid it again with those notes, and then luckily it worked out.
Self-tape is what we're all about. There's the
Oh, there you
background.
go. Oh, you got different backgrounds too. Look at you. Yeah.
Well, yeah, this one's for the show, and the other one is for I
Right.
was doing an interview 2 days ago. So I get off of my regular work, which pays the bills, which is
Mhm.
IT consulting. So I get done with my meetings. I jump immediately into an interview with this background. And then I have a callback for a commercial, which I told you about. And for that callback, I start doing it. Then I notice that I have this background, so I immediately rip it down before they notice, and then I do the callback, and I end up getting it. So I'm very happy.
Amazing. Yeah, that's
It's
how it works these days, right?
it's all if you don't hustle, you don't get anywhere in life.
Hmm.
Specific. Um, in terms of the characters, so the guys did a fun thing on BuzzFeed. I'm talking about the cast on BuzzFeed. Did I say beat? BuzzFeed. Um, it is Feed, right? Not
Yeah,
BuzzFeed.
BuzzFeed. Yeah, you're right.
So they did a fun thing of who's most like their character, who's least like the character. Everybody universally said that you are the least like your character of Jalan in real life, which is good to know. But
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. If they didn't, I would have follow-up questions.
everybody said you are the least like your character, which is great. But in terms of Jalan, and I know she's kind of, we know who we are, and then we play characters outside of that realm. Jalan is pretty far from who you are, but are there any aspects of Jalan that you kind of align with and say, yeah, that's more Yvonne than others?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, I think you can't I can't play any character unless I like them,
Yeah.
and I love Jalon, and also there has to be some kind of connection there no matter what. And there's a lot of humanity written into this character, a lot of humanity written into her. So regardless of how wayward her moral compass may be, I do have a lot of sympathy for why she's doing what she's doing. And there's a lot of justification to her actions that I can get behind.
Mhm.
So knowing that, like that's my way into her.
Yeah, it's cool. And I completely agree. I can't play somebody that I don't identify with, at least a part of me. Or, I use my own technique that I've developed of basically kind of this alternate reality thing. If I go back into my history and I make this step, then I would somehow end up as that character. And I
Right.
have a rooted way for myself to connect to it. So there has to be something there that we connect to. Otherwise, it's not going to be real for us anyway.
Definitely.
Um, in terms of other things, as soon as I saw Ludi Lin, who's awesome by the way, really I wish they gave him more of a chance to do something in the previous film that he was in. Everybody knows which film I'm referring to. But Ludi, now a part of the show, we saw a lot more of him in this last episode. The way that I see it, don't say anything, don't spoil it. But the way that I am seeing it is you have your character Jalan, you have Ludi Lynn's character on one side, on the other side you have Nikki and you have Henry. So I am anticipating that all of that is going to come to some sort of a crescendo, and there's going to be a Yvonne versus Olivia, and I now my names are mixed up. So Henry against the Ludi Lynn's character. I'm
Yeah.
anticipating some sort of a fight at the very end. I'll just
I
leave
mean,
it. At
yeah, I don't think it's a spoiler alert to say that we have to meet eventually. That's fair. And I think that's something that the audience can really look forward to is because me and Nikki are on this same journey,
Yeah,
wanting the same thing. So it's gonna come to a head at some point. So stay tuned for that. It's gonna be really good. It's gonna be
I
really
know.
fun.
If you bring Ludi Lynn onto a show, there better be some sort of a martial art action with him in it.
He's very
So
good. Yeah.
he is very good. And the fun thing is like the episode where you brought him in, it's just in the car. It's a quick couple of minutes. I'm like, wait, that's Ludi Lit. I knew immediately as soon as you opened the door. I'm like, I know that guy. Yes, that's Ludi. And I just watched Mortal Kombat recently, so I know him from that. I know him from Black Mirror. I know him from a bunch of places. So that was a cool surprise that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
Last thing in terms of the show specifically, I've read that you love playing the villain or the antagonist, so to speak. So just in general, if you had your preference, and they would have come to you, and they would have said, "You're offered the role of Nikki, and you're offered the role of Jalad. Which one would you take?"
Oh, that's so hard because
I
it's like,
know.
well, I mean, at the end of the day too, though, I look at the character of Nikki and I look how amazing, amazing, amazing Olivia is in the show. She's like such a amazing leader for not just the character, but also just for all of us, being the lead, that I can't really even see myself ever being in that role because she does it so well. It's kind of like the same thing, when you watch TV and you see the cast come together, because these guys and the creatives know what they're doing, that you're like, I can't see anybody else in that role. I don't even think I'd be able to really envision myself as a Nikki because Olivia's so perfect.
I get you. That's a good way of answering that question. Now, getting out of the show and just getting people to know you a little bit. You grew up in Calgary. You did some acting. Here's what I know. Please correct me where I'm wrong, and then I'll ask my question. So you grew up in Calgary. You did some acting, growing up, but you actually had a different career. So you went into finance, and you actually worked in finance, and then acting bug, kind of never let you go. So you schlepped 10 and a half hours to Vancouver to start your acting career, which is very cool, and I really really appreciate that. But the question is, I come from a conservative Jewish family, so when I told them that I wanted to be an actor, the answer was probably similar to what your parents told you. Um, how did you actually say and finally convince yourself, you know what, I need to do the acting thing, regardless of them wanting me to be a doctor or a finance person?
Right, right. Well, I mean, I think the advantage of starting a little bit later, having had a career, having that experience, and again, I'm not saying anybody needs to have that. This is just, what happened for me was that I think my family also had the comfort knowing that I could go back if if things didn't turn out, the way I had hoped or wanted. Um, yeah, so I think that was kind of the difference there. It wasn't because I had, nothing else, or, I was kind of like making this decision out of nowhere. So for me, it was for me to say, okay, I need to do this for myself because it is something that I've been thinking about for a very, very long time. And at one point, it just kind of came to a head where it's like, I'm either going to do this or I'm not going to do it. And I just said, okay, you got to do it because if it's something that you're constantly thinking about in the back of your mind and the peripheral of whatever it is that's like really giving you a lot of joy, why not? I mean, I actually had this really great conversation with someone, and it was at that point where I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to do this because fear gets in the way of a lot of things, right? And I was living a really good career. I was living in a home that I knew my entire life. Like all of that stuff was really just gnawing at me in this decision. And he said, look, the failure part of it, you can't think about, but success, you never know. And that really got to me because at that point I was thinking so much about failing and disappointing people and kind of going down this path of like, what are you doing? That I didn't even think about how happy it could make me. And that I had to reframe my idea of what success even looked like. It's not really about booking and being a big actor or anything like that. It's more, did you just try at the thing that you really wanted to have? And so for me, that was really what kind of gave me the perspective to be able to tell my friends and family who were a little bit concerned about what I was doing, but in the most appreciative and lovely way because they care about me, you know?
And at what point, after you moved and after you said, okay, I'm going to give this a real try, how long did it take for you to say, okay, I feel I'm going to use the word secure, and in acting, that word doesn't exist. But when did you feel like, you know what? Yes, I can do this. I feel like people are appreciating my talent, and I have something.
I'll be honest, that changes almost every day.
I know.
It kind of does. Like there's gonna be days where I'm like, yeah, I could do this. This is great. And then the other days I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if what I'm putting out there anybody likes or anything like that. So I can't put it down to a certain moment. I think it was almost like every single day just kind of choosing to do this, regardless of that nagging voice of I don't know if this is right. I don't know if this is going to happen for me. It was just choosing every day to kind of progress and be better and silence the voices of doubt. So it changes. It really does.
No, it's true, and that voice of doubt, everybody has it. I was, I'm a big tennis fan. Tennis is my sport. So there was French Open that was happening recently, and in the final of French Open, one of the greatest players ever, who may be the greatest player ever by the time it's all done, Novak Djokovic, he was down 2 sets, and he was pretty handily beaten in those first 2 sets. And he said that he had two voices in his head. One voice said, "Okay, well, it's over. You're done." And the second voice said, "Well, maybe not. Let's give it a try. Let's see what happens in the third set. Let's see how I feel. Maybe there is a chance." And then he basically took the negative voice and he started shutting it down by just repeating to himself the positive things, and he continued going. He ended up winning the French Open and his 19th major. So everybody has this at every level, even the greatest of the greatest of the greatest.
Oh yeah, it's a game you play all the time, right? It's that mental game that you're always playing to try to come out on the other side.
Yeah. So what drives you now? Now that you got picked up for season 2, which is very cool. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What drives you as a person? Where do you want to see yourself in the next year, assuming that there is no more pandemics?
Fair enough. um, I think, yeah. Well, for everybody, I hope that we, all come out of this all right, and that we can all look forward to brighter days. I think what really drives me as a person is it's not so much goal setting, because goals, can move, can change. It's more about the systems I put in place that are best for my own well-being and for everybody else's. So, I have systems where I wake up every day and I do something that's like, good for myself, whether it be exercising or learning something new or whatever. But I dedicate a certain times within my day to make sure that gets done. And hopefully that other people can benefit from that as well. And I know that kind of sounds a little bit like frou whatever, but that's basically how I kind of go about certain things is rather than the goal setting and trying to achieve a certain thing, which can always be a moving target. And I think it's better that way to stay flexible. That I just try to put certain systems in my life, and the benefits that I get from that is really what drives me to do that every day.
That's very cool. And then
Yeah.
lastly, I asked you some questions. People can, Google you and get some more information. But is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you want the viewers of Kung Fu to know about you as a person that they don't know now?
About me as a person, I don't know. See, I always find that hard because I'm like, I don't know what people would want to know. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's interesting. But I just want to say to all the viewers of Kung Fu, like, thank you so much. Honestly, like this is a reason why we have a show. It's a reason why we continue to want to make the show. Is like the incredible response that we've been getting from everybody, and just the love and support that we've been feeling from the audience. We couldn't have asked for a better one. So I just want to thank you guys for enjoying it, and hopefully you're having a good time watching it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, I'll speak for the audience. We're definitely having a great time watching it. So it's a wonderful show.
thanks.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you for coming on and sharing some time with us. We really, really, really appreciate it.
No, I really appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And thanks to everybody for tuning in into another episode of Let's Dive In. We know you love Kung Fu. If you have not watched Kung Fu, click right below the video and go watch it and stream it. If you're in Canada, you have two options. You can watch it on CW or on CN, right?
Or
What is it?
CTV, CTV
CTV,
too.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, something missed. In US, just watch it on CW, and I think it'll be streamed somewhere later. So thanks everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thank you guys.